Hey book lovers, for this Bee's bookshelf we're taking a little trip down memory lane as I go through a few of my favourite books from my childhood. I finally got to see my family after 7 months of absence due to COVID-19 the other week, and I was so delighted to see them. And when I arrived, they'd put together a batch of my childhood reads which they thought would be good for me to share with you all, and so that's what this week's Bee's bookshelf is going to be. So to kickstart is a book that used to have me in stitches. Now when I read it, I'm not quite sure why, but it is Little Old Mrs Pepperpot. Now this book, just the phrase in the book was always "'tis a shame, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame," and I used to run around the house just saying that, thinking it was the funniest thing ever. So Mrs Pepperpot is actually the size of a pepper pot, and she has all these adventures, and I think as a kid I was really taken by the fact that somebody could be so small, a bit like the story of the borrowers, but that didn't quite grab me like this did. And as you can see, this is my original copy. It even has kind of like wonderful illustrations in there, and there you can see Mrs Pepperpot. But also what I love about when you've had a book for a really long time, and we are talking 30 odd years, is the pages go brown, they have its distinct smell, but it really conjures up kind of that passage of time, but also kind of takes you right back to how you felt when you're a child, and that's what I really love about memories like these. But the pages are starting to fall out now, and my wonderful nephew, who's 2.5, thought he'd have a good old play with the book, but I had to take it off him because it was so precious to me. So now it's back at my house. The next book is the complete Winnie the Pooh. Now I was given this very special edition, I think when I was about 7 or 8, and I have always loved Winnie the Pooh. I just think the stories are so marvellous, and he's such a greedy bear that I just love him, and Eeyore and Piglet, and just the A.A. Milne illustrations just still to this day make my heart fill with joy. And there are some really fantastic messages in Winnie the Pooh, and you often see kind of them in inspo posts, but it truly is a wonderful collection of stories. And actually one of my friend's children is mad on Winnie the Pooh, which is so wonderful. And I love the fact that these timeless stories really are applicable through the ages, so it doesn't matter what decade you're born in, and that's the beauty of a really well written story, and one that can last forever. And you often see on the children's shelves in bookshops and libraries the same books, so whether it's Michael Rosen or Eric Carle's The Hungry Caterpillar, it's because they're perennial favourites, because they're so blooming good. And I just adore, I mean, this isn't too dogged, this book, which is quite surprising, but I must have kind of devoured other ones. But what's also wonderful is kind of it's a whole world, the 100 Acre Wood, so you can really escape into there. So I recommend anyone who's got small children to let them delve into a bit of Winnie the Pooh. A book that I got as a child, and I grew up in East Kent, is a signed copy of this, Pinny Finds a House, and it's taught by Peter Firmin, the collaborator with who worked on Bagpuss and the Clangers, and it's a really kind of interesting story about Pinny, who is this tiny, like pin-sized doll woman. I obviously had a thing about characters that were small when I was younger, but this is also a signed copy to me when I was a child, so I'll always keep this. But it's a really interesting tale about her and how her other kind of pin-sized friend go on a little journey. But just look how fantastic this is, and as a child I just remember getting lost in it, and also this spider was the scariest thing ever. I still don't like spiders really. And I've never seen this book anywhere else but than where my parents got it. for me. We must have gone to an event where Peter Furman was there. So that's a rather special book. Alongside that, some early reads are also 1 to 10 and Down Again. I've never seen this anywhere else, but it's a book that helps you with your numbers, and it's a funny tale of all these people in a town that get swept off by this balloon, which I thought was hilarious. And a wonderful book about opposites. Now, the reason that I love this book even more in my adult life is because it was published by Usborne Publishing, and that was actually my first ever job after I left uni, and I went to work at Usborne Publishing in their marketing team, and they are the most fantastic children's publisher, wonderful team. They make everything in-house, and that really was a joyous 5 years of my life, and their books continue to be bestsellers because they're so good and they put so much thought and love into them. So a big shout out to the Usborne family because you're all great. The Little Mermaid. Oh, I just love this story. We went to Copenhagen when I was 7. That's when I first learned of Hans Christian Andersen's story. It's a bit problematic now, I have to say, especially kind of the Disney film for me. But at the time, it really took me to another world. And living by the sea, I think it had an extra special meaning for me. And last but not least is the author that I would say has had one of the most impacts on my life and is my all-time absolute fave, and I just love his books and love what he brought to me as a child. And I was not a big reader as a child. I didn't really start reading a lot of books until my late teens and early 20s actually, and it is Roald Dahl. Now Roald Dahl for me just made me laugh so much. His witty, wicked writing, and I owe him a lot to my sense of humour, I think. He's silly, he's amusing, he takes a slightly contrary view on life, and his imagination just was wonderful. I've always wanted to go and visit his little writing hut where he used to live, and hopefully I will do one day, but he is the ultimate fave for me, and here are some of my original ones: the BFG, Matilda, and The Witches. Now, The Witches scared me so much when I was a child. I couldn't have my copy in my bedroom even. My sister had to have 2 copies in her bedroom because I was still scared. And there's an aspect that it still makes me feel a bit scared now, especially if you think of the film. Matilda, of course, a girl who loves books. And so I shall end on this, but I recommend Roald Dahl to anyone. Please do share with me what your favourite childhood reads were. I'd love to hear about them, and keep reading, keep sane, and keep sharing your reads.